Sit back and listen to this extremely interesting story. Laurie was quite conservative. She wasn't a big fan of spending time out of the ordinary. She liked to read candid books in our den, and one day I forced her to please me. Lord, she was beautiful too. I really enjoyed playing with her whenever I got the chance. We have a pretty good married life. She is always pleased and loves when I tease her. From day to day we are very vanilla. They may occasionally send without clothes, but other than that it's perfectly fine. They went to a bar until nightfall. Laurie isn't a big drinker. She'll go with me, have a few drinks and drive us home, but she's always sober by that time. This time was different. We arrived to the bar around 9 p.m. for a date night, just the two of us. It was in the local Hilton, real nice. There was no karaoke that night, but the bar was fairly packed anyway, for a Thursday that is. Tonight, though, we had already had a nice dinner out, and were a few drinks in when we got there. I got us the first round of drinks, whiskey sour for me and a vodka Red Bull for her. We chatted and flirted with each other, having a good time. She switched to vodka orange juice on the next one. By the third drink, we were both feeling mighty tipsy. I asked her to grab the next round from the bar. She came over to get our drinks, and I thought she took longer than I expected. I looked around the room, and when I found her at the bar at the other end of the room, I noticed two men talking to her while she waited for our drinks. She seemed to be flirting with them, throwing her golden hair behind her ears and laughing with them. One of them gently touched her hand and the other touched her figure as he left. I wasn't sure, but it looked purposeful. They laughed together for a while longer, and then he leaned down, whispered something in her ear, and slipped a piece of paper into her back pocket. She returned to the table. "Hey, honey, making new friends?" I asked. "Oh, just a couple friendlies. They cruelly bought our drinks. How nice." It was then that I noticed that her blouse was unbuttoned with 2 buttons, but when she left the house earlier it was not. A few drops of sweat run down her neck. I drank a lot before the good music came on and asked Laurie to dance. We started to dance as she quickly turned around to snuggle up against me. Just then, one of those men came out of the crowd, raised his hand, motioning for my wife to dance with him. She looked around as if asking permission, and I nodded my head. She took his hand as he twisted it around him. He slid his hands to her frame and began to dance. She was pretty drunk too, but he held her tightly. I couldn't believe what I was seeing. He spent some time there, but she suddenly bent down, pressed herself against him, and picked herself up. Laurie turned, looked him in the eye, whispered something in his ear, and returned to the table. "Well, that looked like fun, didn't it?" I asked with annoyance in my voice. "Oh, I was just having fun, baby," she said, and then drank her drink. When she did, I noticed a giant bruise on her neck. It was bright red. "Baby, did you let him kiss your neck? Now you have a huge bruise." "It's okay, honey, it felt good. I can hide it with foundation on Monday before work." Annoyed, I stood up. "I have to go to the bathroom. Could you get us some refills?" I asked Laurie. "Of course, honey," as she grabbed our cups and went up to the bar. I headed for the bathroom, my head swimming with mixed feelings. Why am I so obsessed with that guy kissing my wife's neck? He left a bruise. Why didn't I say anything? It took a minute to free myself. I was so distracted. I washed my hands and left. When I sat down at our table, I saw that my wife was still standing behind the bar. It was already full. Many people were waiting. But the same man was right behind her, playing with her. He whispered in her ear again as I saw him bite her earlobe and move in to kiss her neck again. This time it's more intense, and he wraps his arms around her shoulder to pull her head to his as they kiss. Just then the bartender returns with the drinks, and they part, and Laurie returns to the table. "What was that, Laurie? Calm down. We're just having fun. That's what you wanted, right? A night out for fun," she said as she sat down. I downed my drink even faster this time as the room was getting a little blurry. "Leo invited us up to his room, honey. You wanna move it up there?" Laurie asked me in a bit of a slur. "Why not? Shall I take our stuff and meet you there?" "In which room?" 109, Leo said. "See you soon, honey." I lazily gathered our things while I tried to collect my thoughts. I was so drunk. All I could think about was Laurie kissing Leo at the bar. Did I want it to continue? I got up to the room and knocked. There was no response at first, but I did hear what sounded like Laurie giggling. I waited a few more minutes and knocked again. I thought I heard a quiet moan, and then the door opened. It wasn't Leo, but the other guy that was with him earlier in the evening. They were both good-looking men, tall and muscly. "My wife said you guys invited us up to the room. Is this the right room?" The man opened the door further so I could see behind him without saying a word. Lo and behold, my wife was sitting with Leo. He was playing with her, and she was kissing his neck. There were also two other men in the room. The man gestured for me to enter. As I entered, I noticed Laurie's clothes on the floor at the end of the room. She raised her head and said, "Hello, sweetie, sit down, there are drinks on the table." "What's going on here, Laurie?" "Well, Leo has very nicely invited us up here to this wonderful suite. Isn't it nice?" Just then, Leo's hand moved and Laurie let out a deep moan as her eyes went back in her head. "Honey, do you remember not too long ago we talked about your fantasies, about seeing me with another man? I know we said it was just fantasy, but I thought you'd like to play that out. I wasn't so sure we would." "I guess we could." I gulped out. My heart was racing. "Oh, I'm so glad, honey. Leo has been so nice to me. He's got incredible hands." Leo soon stopped teasing Laurie. He then tapped her elbow as she raised her hands so he could remove her shirt. I couldn't believe this was happening. Another man stood up and grabbed something from another part of the suite. He turned and I saw that it was a camera and a tripod. Leo looked at my wife's figure and then looked at me for the first time. "Your wife is mine tonight. Nothing for you to do but enjoy this. We've set up this camera so we can record everything." "Don't worry, we'll send you a copy later," Leo said with a smile. I felt a little sick, maybe because of the alcohol, or maybe because I watched my wife being held by another man. He reached out and massaged her, then gently lifted her chin to his as they kissed again. Laurie played with him for a bit before letting go. Leo got rid of Laurie's last clothes. He started pinching and twisting her. Laurie winced as he did so. She was always so embarrassed by this. Laurie jumped a little. After playing a little more, Leo motioned for Laura to stand up. In front of me was my wife, without clothes, which these three men could see. Leo stood up and gestured for her to sit on the bed, leaving her clothes behind. He was in great shape. He slowly walked over to Laurie, looked at himself, and she understood. She took off his last clothes and saw all of Laurie. His interest was great. The look of surprise on her face was priceless as she sneaked a look at me. I sat there motionless, not sure what to do, so I just nodded. Laurie began to please his boyfriend. She worked slowly and surely. She looked up to see Leo throw his head back, enjoying every minute of it. She soon fell into a rhythm, only to feel Leo's hand on her, speeding her up. She did this with considerable self-sacrifice, withstanding Leo's intense thrusts. Leo was soon satisfied. He eased the pressure briefly, so she tirelessly pulled back to breathe, but this time he made her work even faster. By this point, her makeup was running down her face, mixed with tears. A few times she needed air, and he removed his hands to let her catch her breath. When she looked at him with those beautiful eyes, he knew it was time and was bringing her back to business, this time putting more and more pressure on her. He looked at me, winked, and turned back to Laurie. She was smiling ear to ear. He took her by the hand and led her to me. Laurie leaned down and kissed me. She kissed me hard, the dirt all over her face smeared on mine. We kissed as my heart raced even more and my excitement grew. Laurie stood up, said "I love you," and went back to bed. Leo stood behind Laurie. He gently pushed her forward and onto the bed. Leo hit her, making her yelp and then moan, and crouched next to her. He started teasing her. Laurie moaned softly. He stops and I hear Laurie let out a frustrated sigh. He came forward and started pleasuring her. I couldn't see much, but I could hear him diligently doing it. Laurie was very excited and doing things I had never seen before. 15 minutes went by as I downed another drink. I couldn't believe this. I couldn't believe what I was seeing. Suddenly Laurie starts to shake uncontrollably. She moans louder and louder, her whole body shaking with pleasure. This goes on for almost a minute before she collapses onto the bed. Leo sits down next to me and makes a drink. "How long have you two been in the lifestyle?" "We're not," I reply. "Sure tricked me," Leo said as he finished his drink. "Your wife is very beautiful. You are very excited. You may as well join." Leo walks back over to the bed and flips Laurie over, pulling her closer to the edge. He looked her in the eyes before starting the main action. He didn't move. It seemed like an eternity, although it must have been only 15 seconds. Neither made a move. Then Laurie looked slowly and knowingly at me, then back at Leo and nodded. They started spending time together. He started and stopped, just letting her get used to the feeling. He then continued to work slowly, making Laurie almost gasp. I could instantly see how excited she was. When Leo said, I took off my clothes and sat on the chair. Looking at this, I couldn't stand it and started to pleasure myself. I was almost instantly satisfied. Now Leo became more intense. Laurie was in heaven. Leo stopped and let her catch her breath, looking at her asking if he needed to increase the intensity. She opened her eyes and began to nod her head. "Yes, I need more, give me more. I need it." I have seen it different, Laurie, but this is the first time. Leo did what he planned. He was working hard, and Laurie was enjoying every moment. Again and again I saw how he pleased my wife. I couldn't take it anymore. I started pleasuring myself again, and had the pleasure of dirtying the guest carpet. Leo stopped after a while as Laurie let out a guttural sound, and I felt so good. Where are you going? Leo walked over to me, winked at me, and turned back to Laurie. He pressed himself against her, but did nothing. Come here, my friend. I want you to see how I spend time with your wife up close. I don't know what came over me, but I got up, walked over to the left side of the bed, and knelt down to watch. He started working again with the same intensity until Laurie began to spasm, her entire body shaking with pleasure as she breathed so hard. He never stopped, even though she needed a break. He never stopped his work. At some point, Laurie grunted, "May I?" Laurie nodded, and he tensed, took the last step into pleasure. He grunted and breathed until it was all over. Leo walked over to my side of the bed to stand next to me. He waved Laurie from the middle, and she complied. He again directed her to please him. She obeyed. She worked out, and Leo looked at me and said, "Give her a kiss. She did well today." I hesitated what I was doing here. What did we do? Come on. Leo said louder this time. I leaned down from my position and started kissing Laurie. 20 seconds into our kiss, I was satisfied again. It was too much to handle. I got up and headed to the bathroom. Laurie said, "Hey, where are you going? Come here." I turned around and she gestured for me to come back. She grabbed me and started to wipe the dirt from me by herself. When she finished, she looked at me with love in her eyes and told me to finish cleaning. After a few minutes in the bathroom cleaning myself up, I came out to Leo fully dressed, making out with Laurie sitting on the bed. He stopped, got up, winked at me, and left the room with his friend, taking the tripod with them. Laurie and I got dressed. As we did so, there was a loud silence. I looked at the clock, and it was 4 in the morning. We've been here since at least midnight. Where did the time go? I was sober by then, so I drove us home. To be continued. Subscribe to our channel so that your second C gaff doesn't cheat on you, and go ahead and listen to the next story, because this story is nothing compared to the next one. If you're under 18, don't even think about listening to the next one.